Okay. Would you have to sign in?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I see them sitting. He's sitting right in the family room. Larry.
Answer? Want to go by the family? Jay back there with the family. Is that Jay? That's Jay.
You on a cane the last time I saw you? I'm on a cane.
Charles returned. Want to have a seat in that place?
Oh, we're not recording anymore.
What?
We are not recording. Something like DVD replicators broke. So, what we're doing now is flash family exit from that service that podcasted for us.
Okay. Soon as you walk over and close this door. Lisa, put it in there. Okay. Does it come with I don't know. Everybody's making changes. I don't know.
You know what I knew? My daughter taught me this.
She's going to be 35 minutes.
Welcome. I mean, welcome. And I said to you,
Right? You know, in the chapel.
he's actually one of these.
Here for Willey. Oh, are you family?
Yes.
Dear friends, actually, first I'm going to ask, can you understand me? Okay, if it gets difficult, I can loosen the mask a little bit. I'm 6 feet from everyone. I'm trying to be very cautious during these continuing days of precaution and of being careful. And it's very good to see everyone gathered this afternoon to remember and to celebrate the life of one who filled our world with his goodness, his love, his example, and his spirit. In gratitude and humility, we turn to the wisdom of our tradition for comfort, for guidance, and for understanding. Throughout the centuries, whenever our people felt lost, confused, adrift, they would speak words of Psalms, and in particular Psalm 121, Esainai el Heharim, I lift my eyes to the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help comes from God, maker of heaven and of earth. Esainai el Heharim, me'ayin, Sinai el Eorim me'ayin Yavo Ezri me'im Adonai Osei Shamayim Varetz Ezri me'im Adonai Osei Shamayim Varetz Sinai el Eorim me'ayin Yavo Ezri Sinai el Eorim me'ayin Yavo Ezri. Adonai, O God, what are we, that you have regard for us? What are we, that you are mindful of us? We are like a breath. Our days are like a passing shadow. We come and go like grass which in the morning shoots up renewed, and in the evening fades and withers. You cause us to turn to dust, saying, Return, O mortal creatures. Would that we were wise, that we understood whither we are going. For when we die, we carry nothing away. Our glory does not accompany us. Mark the wholehearted, and behold the upright. They shall have peace. For those of you for whom the 23rd Psalm is familiar, I invite you to join with me in its recitation. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. When I die, remember me with a smile and laughter. If thoughts of me provoke no love, only sadness and tears, I ask that I be soon forgotten. Give what's left of me away to children and old ones who wait to die. And if you must cry, cry for your brother or sister who walks in grief beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give to me. You can love me most by letting love live within the circle of your arms, embracing the frightened ones. Love doesn't die. People do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away. My dear Frank, dear Canaan and Elizabeth, Tim and Rebecca, dear family, dear friends. Chester Newman Willey was a multifaceted, multi-talented, and multi-dimensional human being. He loved music and literature, art and theater. He loved to laugh and owned bad humor. In fact, he undertook delivery of the very best bad humor with almost missionary zeal. I remember groaning at the terrible puns, wry sarcastic comments, and flat one-liners that regularly emerged from the tenor section of the Fairmont Temple Choir. He loved history and reading, learning and teaching, traveling, and even agitating. His mind retained mountains of information that he loved to share at the slightest provocation. He was a literate, articulate, fairly rational individual who was the first to offer help whenever anyone was in need or in distress of any kind. He was a true first responder in life. He was open-minded, inclusive, and ahead of his time. He saw no distinctions, barriers, or obstacles between people. He saw only individuals. He gave the best hugs and looked like a biker Santa. It's what the family told me. With all the gifts of his mind, talent, and character, it was his passions that defined him. Chester Newman Willey loved music, history, and the Masons. He loved his friends and his Jewish faith. He loved his family, a family that had permeable borders and was thus always increasing, either biologically or through loving relationships, or both. And he adored Marcia, the love of his life. Chester Newman Willey led with his heart. This heart-strong man arrived into this world as the fourth of Victoria and Chester Willey Sr.'s 5 children, as Robert, Ruth, and Richard preceded Chester into the family, and John followed. Chester was born in Zanesville, Ohio, but the family moved around a bit to Columbus, Cincinnati, Cleveland, and then to Phoenix, Arizona, where Chester spent his high school years and then went to college in Flagstaff. While every person's story contains a certain amount of mystery and unknowability, Chester's trajectory to the open-hearted, non-judgmental, patient, tolerant, universally accepting, and inclusive person he became was particularly stunning and impressive. His father was a hard-working small business owner who did contracting for brickwork primarily, and did not share any of Chester's major passions. Nevertheless, Chester followed his heart and found music a constant source of refuge, support, and joy from his earliest years in grade school to his last hours of life. He would reminisce about the wonderful experiences he had singing in choirs, first in grade and high school, as he traveled the state and beyond to regional and state competitions. He would often say that he learned more from these excursions than he ever did in school itself. As an adult, he sang in the Cleveland Orchestra Chorus, and when the orchestra went on tour, if finances and schedule permitted, he would take his kids and various family members with him to exciting destinations with the orchestra. His experiences with music opened the world to him and taught him to appreciate cultural, social, racial, economic, and geographical diversity. His heart thrilled to the vast symphony of human variety. Chester's life reflected his appreciation for multiplicity and complexity in various ways. He loved college and the many experiences he enjoyed there. Ever the good-natured instigator, he was particularly proud of his most notorious escapade, when, motivated by his infatuation with a young co-ed and his desire to express his feelings to the world, heart forward as he was, he surreptitiously found his way into the college radio room, where he announced his feelings on air and then proceeded to share his opinions about the Vietnam War, racism, sexism, and anything else he could squeeze in, until security arrived to cut him off. He was thereafter classified as an agitator because of that incident, and he had an FBI file. Upon earning his bachelor's degree in music theory, he talked about going back to school for his master's, but somehow that never materialized. Had finances and his circumstances been somewhat different, he would have been a music teacher, but never one to complain. Chester found his way, as we might expect, to an assortment of jobs in hotels, at a local radio station, WAIF, to Key Bank, which proved to be personally significant. When Frank and Kanan were growing up, they would have 2 to 3 months of summer visitation with him. They vividly remember his work as the nighttime manager of a Treadway Inn. Every night, Chester would open one of the hotel rooms for them, and they would happily watch cable TV until they both fell asleep. When Chester got off of work, he would load them into the car and drop them off at the babysitter, while he went home to sleep and returned to spend the afternoons with them. He worked his way up to do a great deal of night auditor work for hotels that had bars. With his honesty and work ethic, Chester was invaluable as the person who watched and accounted for all of the money that changed hands around the sale of alcohol. He enjoyed a similar progression at Key Bank, where he started in collections and worked his way up to the HR department where, among his responsibilities, he made sure that new employees were paid correctly. He stayed with the HR department for the remainder of his career. Nevertheless, along the way, Chester somehow found his way to actually work at a legitimate radio station, where he was in charge of the microphone and chose the music. It seems to have proceeded without incident. He worked part-time at Walmart when he lived in Canton, and briefly had a second job at the Hoover Museum. With his love of history and biography, we can imagine that he must have relished his time at the museum, even when it meant an added measure of stress in his life. Whatever Chester's employment may have been at any time, his first responsibility, in his own mind, was to help others, to assist them in their daily needs and activities, and to ease the burdens of their lives. When he was working at the museum, Chester had a dear friend, Sean, who was going through dialysis. Chester made it his responsibility to be sure Sean was at his appointments, even though it meant that he would finish his work at Walmart. He would pick up Sean and drop him off at the dialysis center. He would then go to the museum and return to take Sean home when his shift was over. And all of that while taking care of his granddaughter, Angel, as well. In fact, Angel was the reason he moved to Canton in the first place. If there was a need, Chester was the first to help, even more so if it was his own family. In a sense, however, Chester saw every human being as a member of his family. As his children articulated, his responsibility in this life was to help others and never to accept help for himself. One of his neighbors was disabled, and Chester took it upon himself to regularly take her to the grocery store or to shop for her. When he drove her, he would put her in his car, and then at the store would help her to navigate the aisles and the products. When she was not up to going, she would leave a list for him in an envelope. There were occasions when he was bone tired, when all he wanted was to go home after work, shower, and unwind. But he would take that list and do her grocery shopping because she had no one else. When he was married to Marcia, they brought her nephew Anthony into their home for a few years to help ease the turbulence of his teenage years. He became a son to them as they helped direct him to a positive path of pride in his work and in his accomplishments. Anthony signed up for the Junior Marines while he was in high school and then pursued a career in the Army. For someone who had spoken out against the war in Vietnam, Chester was intensely proud of his family's service in the military, on the part of his brothers, on the part of Anthony and Canaan, whose career as a paratrooper he avidly followed, and then treasured the gift of Canaan's wings that Canaan was awarded when he completed jump school and gave to his father. Chester expressed regret that a medical condition prevented him from enlisting. He perceived military service as a patriotic duty and one he would have been proud to fulfill. He led with his heart, after all. And his heart led him right into the charitable work of the Masons. Chester was passionate about the Masons. He was proud of his father's involvement, of Tim's membership in the Brotherhood, and that Canaan's stellar military service afforded Chester an honorary membership in the Masons' National Sojourners Society, which was normally reserved for United States veterans only. Chester began in the Masons in their youth group, Demolay, in Arizona, when he was a teenager. When he reached the appropriate age, he formally joined the Freemasons in Arizona, and then upon moving back to Ohio, he joined the lodge to which his father belonged, the Amity Lodge in Zanesville. When Chester settled in Cleveland, he became very involved in the Euclid Lodge and ultimately served as their worshipful master, a kind of president, for 1 year in 2003. His Masonic career included his involvement in the Heights Lionheart Lodge. It also afforded him the opportunity to be a charter signer for the new University Heights Lodge. He was also called to serve the Acacia Masonic Lodge, where he served a second time as worshipful master. Chester was very excited to be involved in Philolethe, the Masonic Research Lodge. As Tim and Canaan will attest, whenever he was asked a question, Chester would give a detailed history of the world before he would actually answer the question. And along the way would share with the person who asked all kinds of things the person didn't know he wanted to know. Thus, the Philolethe Lodge appealed to his sweet spot. He loved researching the Masonic fraternity. It brought him a great deal of joy. Chester also served as the choir director of the auxiliary of the Scottish Rite Masonic entity. Throughout most, and I believe many of you are here, is that correct? Throughout most of his years with the Masonic Brotherhood, his dear friend, Major Bill Kext, shared the experience with him. Together they enjoyed the annual Memorial Day outing to Johnson's Island, where they would honor in particular Masons who had fought on both sides of the Civil War. It comforted Chester to know that brothers who had been in conflict found peace lying together in one place for eternity. Chester also loved to share Brotherhood Night, when a local clergy person would speak about the meaning of brotherhood as taught in sacred text. He also loved to distribute the funds they had collected for worthy charities and beneficiaries. He led with his heart. Chester loved the Masons. He loved music, and he loved history. He loved all cultural endeavor, and he loved to sing in Hebrew at Thanksgiving. He loved to joke and kid around. He loved this country, his Jewish faith, and helping others. At the center of all of his interests and all of his activities, at the center of his passions and his loving heart, was his family. Having grown up as one of 5 siblings, Chester began his own family when he and Claudia married in Arizona and welcomed Chester Francis Willey III, known as Frank, into the world. By the time Cain and Jesse, now Wiseman, arrived, the family had moved back to Ohio, and Canaan was born in Cincinnati. Divorce presented its challenges to the young family, but not to Chester's gentle heart. The obstacles were logistical, not emotional, so that as Frank and Jesse, and then Tim, and then Anthony, grew and matured, Chester could take pleasure in their exploits and accomplishments, as Frank married Jacqueline, as Canaan married Margaret and then found his Elizabeth, and as Tim married Rebecca. Frank's favorite memory of his father is captured in a beautiful photograph of Chester sitting in a chair, looking like a happy Santa, holding his newly born granddaughter Angel in his arms. We can almost hear Chester saying, "It doesn't get any better than this," a sentiment he felt many times as Canaan and Margaret's Corbin, Maharet, Tanika, and Gabriel, or Ducky, Maymay, Danny Bug, and Bishop came into the family and Chester's heart. Every member of this family has at least 2 names, and I challenge you to know all of them. Chester always welcomed new members of the family, as when Elizabeth married Canaan and brought with her Miranda and Briar. As far as Chester was concerned, there was always room for 1 or 2 or 10 more in his family and in his heart. We are all exceedingly grateful for the trip that helped move Canaan and Elizabeth from Virginia to Florida just this past October. Chester helped make the drive possible and had the profound blessing of being able to spend 4 to 5 hours of uninterrupted car time with Ducky, who shared his ideas for writing about science fiction, with Maymay, who wanted to know about the family's history and heritage, with Danny Bug, who loves to sing and dance and dreams of being a pop star, and Bishop, who loves sharing his passion for robots and space. It was a very special trip for them all. He led with his heart. When he saw her for the very first time, literally across a crowded room, he thought to himself, who is that exquisite creature? He made it his business to find out. And when he did, she became the love of his life. For a far too brief period of time, they were partners in all things. She shared his passions for goodness and learning and brought him to Judaism, which he embraced with fervor and devotion. Marcia Newman Willey was on track to become the first African-American woman rabbi when a serious car accident derailed her plans and ultimately led to her tragic, untimely death. In the aftermath of her passing, Chester was almost inconsolable. The heart that led him to her was broken. He could barely breathe with the pain of her loss. At work, he was friends with a woman by the name of Patricia Borkowski. They had both started a key bank around the same time. Even in the throes of his grievous loss, Chester could not ask for help, but Pat noticed that he was hurting and kept after him to offer comfort, to ease his suffering, to be a listening ear, a supportive presence. What began as a friendship grew into something more, something beautiful and touching. and Pat brought with her her beloved son, Tim, who became a true son of Chester's heart and spirit, and a devoted, loving presence in Chester's life. Chester and Pat finally reached a place of firm commitment to each other and to sharing a life together when the unthinkable happened a second time. Pat died from the complications of a routine surgery gone wrong. Our sage, Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Kotsk, taught, "There is nothing so whole as a broken heart." There is nothing so whole as a broken heart. Chester Newman Willey led with his very whole, often broken, but seemingly always resilient heart, until that heart that had given so much, that had given unstintingly, with no expectation or desire for return, and that would still be giving, except that heart lost its physical, never its spiritual strength. Can we not, however, feel something of that noble heart beating in each of us when we sing, when we learn, when we share, when we laugh, when we reach out our hand to another, when we walk a bit taller and feel inspired to be a little bit better, and feel inspired to be a little bit better than we were the day before, we will know that Chester's heart of goodness and love continues to beat in this world. Zichrono livracha. May his memory rest always as a blessing upon us. And let us say, Amen. O God, you give us loved ones and make them the strength of our life, the light of our eyes. They depart and leave us bereft on a lonely way. But you are the living fountain from which our healing flows. To you the stricken look for comfort and the sorrow-laden for consolation. O God, we see life as through windows that open on eternity. We see that love endures and the soul endures, as you, O God, endure forever. We see that the years are more than grass that withers, more than flowers that fade. They weave a timeless pattern in a world that is the dwelling place of your love and glory. Please rise. For El Malei Rachamim, it is our prayer in which we ask God to take care of Chester. El Malei Rachamim, Shochein Bamromim, Ametzei Menucha Nechona, תחת כנפי השכינה, עם קדושים וטהורים, כזור רקיע מזהירים, את נשמת חיים בן אברהם ושרה, שלוח לעולמים, בעל הרחמים Torah Ve'anuach B'Shalom Al Mishkavo Ve'nomar Amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Chester Francis Willey II, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in your eternal presence, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace. And let us say, Amen. I was mistaken earlier, so forgive me. But in just a moment, I invite the chancel choir of Christ Presbyterian Church, that is where you are all coming from today, to offer, I believe, a hymn in memory of Chester and in honor of all that he meant to every one of you. You may come forward at this time.
We're also honored to have members of Fairmount Presbyterian Church and Truman Orchestra Chorus with us as well to celebrate Chester's life. conclude services here at the chapel. I would like to ask any pallbearers to step forward. Anyone who's going to the cemetery who would like to help carry the casket, I'm going to ask you to step forward at this time. And I'm going to ask you to put your coats on. I'm going to go and ask you to go with Mr. Miller. The aisle, he take you where you need to go. Friends, we're going to ask you to rise and remain in place, please. Spread them around to some of the common areas so everyone can enjoy it. Everyone else, family, step this way, please. And then follow right behind the casket. Follow right behind, please. Go right up this way, please. This will conclude services. Friends may return to their cars. If you are driving to the cemetery, please start your car and put on your headlights and your flashers. May exit towards the rear of the building. Right this way.